Hi creative friends, welcome back to Kelly Does Stuff. You guys remember when I created that mini polar mountain and I had no idea what I was going to do with it? Well, I thought of something. Because over the past year or so, I have been collecting mini buildings. They're kind of different sizes of mini ones. These are actually Department 56. They're ornaments and they are like the mini versions of Dickens buildings. They do not light up. Did I just say they were ornaments? These are just other brands. I don't know the name. Some of them have the option for a light cord. Some of them have a candle option here. And so I didn't know what I was going to do with these either, but I thought a mini village one day could be pretty cute. So I'm combining those. And today we are going to build a mini village mountain display around that waterfall. Now, I liked this project for a couple of reasons. One, personally for myself, it helped me build some confidence and test some things out for a future build that I want to do. I have for many years wanted to do a great, like real deal mountain display for my Dickens Village full-size buildings. So I was able to kind of work through some of that in this project. But the big main reason I'm excited to share this with you guys is I think a mini village is great if you are tight on display space or storage. So if you have been wanting to display a village, have a village display, but you're like, I don't have the room for all of this that I see people do, keep your eye out for mini buildings because I think you can create something really magical and enchanting. So let's get to it. Let's get creating.
I'm going to start with a piece of EPS foam as my base. This was cut from a larger piece of foam, 4 feet by 8 feet by 2 inches. I'm going to place my waterfall here. I'm not securing it in place to the base. This is just the guide for how I'm going to build up the mountain around it. And a lot of that work is going to be done in the back of the waterfall. Into my scrap bin of foam I go, and thankfully I have my assistant to help me pick out the very best pieces. A lot of the mountain is going to be built up behind that waterfall, so to give myself some great height right off the bat to build off of, I'm going to use this styrofoam cooler that I got from the dollar store. Now we start adding in those scraps of foam to build our mountain, giving us those different layers and elevations. And one thing I'm definitely keeping in mind is where are my flat surfaces going to be where my buildings can rest. Once I feel good about the placement of a lot of those pieces, I'm going to start hot gluing them into place. Now, you might be aware that hot glue can melt through foam. If you work with XPS foam, you can typically get away with having your hot glue gun on the high setting. If your glue starts to really kind of bubble and boil, that's the point when it's probably going to start melting through your foam. What I have noticed with EPS foam is that it will start to melt the foam at a lower temperature. So often I will work with my hot glue gun on the low setting when I'm working with EPS foam. Sometimes that's almost too cool and it will cool too quickly before you're able to bond the pieces together. So you might want to flip your hot glue gun into the high setting until it gets too hot and then flip it back down to the low. Basically, our hot glue guns are just sort of like testing us, playing mind games with us. But if you have had trouble with hot glue and foam before, just keep at it. Maybe try a hot glue gun that has those high and low settings and just kind of pay attention to your temperature. You should be able to get these to stick to each other. Once I have enough of a structure in place, I'm going to start gluing shapes that give it that rocky detail. And this part is going to look really rough. Like it's going to look bad. And that's part of it. We're going to cover this in plaster, and that's going to transform the mess into something that really looks like a mountain. So don't be discouraged if when you're doing this, it looks really bad. That's part of the process. One thing I do keep in mind is to give myself some space between the mountain that I'm building and that waterfall piece. So don't have styrofoam butt right up against the waterfall piece, because when I add that plaster, that is going to add more bulk to the mountain that I'm building, and I won't be able to get that waterfall piece back into place. And then, of course, there's the most important part of any project, standing back and staring at it, trying to figure out what to do next. Sometimes you stare so long, it starts to get really cold. And here we go with the plaster. I recently did a tutorial video on how to plaster, and it was actually this mountain that I was plastering. So if you want some information on how to do that, check that video out. What I love so much about plaster is it's a pretty simple, easy process for an incredible result. So if you've been thinking about plaster but have been unsure or intimidated, give it a try. You could absolutely do it, and I think that you're really going to love your final result. We've come to my most favorite part of plaster projects, which is painting, because this is where you really get to bring your piece to life. That brush right there, you've probably seen it before. It's fat, fluffy, and round. It's my most favorite brush to use for my base coat. I'm going to use the same colors that I used for that waterfall piece. It's a neon blue, and I've got some white. If you haven't used your paints in a while, make sure you shake them up and make sure that cap is on there really good. Even if it's a brand new bottle, make sure, just check the cap. This is acrylic paint in a matte finish. I typically use matte for my base coat, and then if I want to add a satin or a metallic finish, I will do that after the base coat has dried. So the question is, can you use spray paint? Yes, you can. Just remember, spray paint will eat through your foam. So if you have any exposed areas of your foam, protect it. Or if you are going for a really cool look from that spray paint, just keep an eye on it. You're gonna get the look that you like, and then if you're not paying attention, your foam is gonna be gone. That paint will eat quickly. I typically don't use spray paint. It's just a personal preference. I really enjoy this painting process. I find it fun, I find it relaxing, and spending time with the piece in the base coat process sort of helps me get in touch with it a little bit. It helps me kind of learn and see what it wants, where would be good areas to apply highlights and shadows. Also, while the paint is wet, I'm kind of doing a bit of blending. However, this can get a little tricky when painting plaster. What I have noticed is if you keep applying that paintbrush to an area that is wet, it will kind of lift up the plaster. It like re-wets it or compromises its integrity or something that sounds fancy. I don't know what happens. But if you notice that plaster start to come up while you are painting, step away from your piece, let it dry, and then go back in and start adding more paint. And right here is what I'm talking about. That plaster is coming up, so time to give this area a break. Throughout the painting process, I kept getting this feeling that I wanted to add gray to the mountains, that the mountains themselves were actually gray, and you would only see a little bit of that poking through the snow and the ice. But I was a little bit nervous about this because I was like, what if I mess it up? Which is really silly because you can just paint over it. I debated between a lighter gray and a darker gray, but then I ultimately decided if we're gonna use gray, let's go bold and big and use the dark gray. And I do feel like it was the right decision. I'm also glad that I'm playing around and experimenting here because, as I had mentioned, part of what I liked about doing this project is it's sort of a test run for the bigger mountain that I want to make for my full-size Dickens Village pieces. So this whole project was kind of the balance of making this mountain look really good in the way that I wanted, but also allowing myself that opportunity to experiment and play around so I could go into that bigger project with more confidence. It's a little funny to me that for these winter mountains, I paint in reverse. Typically, you are using your darkest color as your base coat, and then you dry brush on lighter and lighter shades. And I think the reason that I do this in reverse is because I primarily want this mountain to be white and snowy. And it does just kind of feel like a waste to start with a really dark color when most of that is going to be covered up. Now, I didn't know that my darkest color was going to be gray, but even so, I didn't start with my dark blue color. I kind of went in and added in dark blue where I wanted it. So even though the colors are sort of reversed, the dry brushing process is still the same. You want just a little bit of paint on that brush, and you want to move quickly over your piece and let the brush pick up the details in the plaster. Just like I did with the waterfall, I want to add some shine. I didn't film this part because the paint is so light you can't really see what I'm doing, but it will show up when it dries. There are so many options for adding snow to your piece, but I gotta go with glitter. I'm just going to apply some PVA glue in the areas that I want it and sprinkle on my glitter. All right, everybody, cross your fingers. It's time for the waterfall. Is it gonna fit? Yay! Okay, that was seriously thrilling. Let's continue the thrills and start adding our buildings. Now, I had mentioned some of these do light up. They came with a cord. I don't know how old these cords are. I'm a little bit worried about them, so I am not going to be using them, but I did give myself the option to get new cords to use for future use. You can see those holes in the back of the mountain there. That was to thread my cords through. And then these little ornaments, the Department 56 ones, they don't light up at all. And my plan for this mountain is just to kind of light up like the whole mountain, not the individual buildings. All right, let's talk trees. I love a variety of looks for my displays. I am going to use some floral picks right here, as well as some stems that I'm going to cut off into individual branches. I got these during the winter season. I haven't been to Michael's in a while, so I'm not sure what they might have left on their inventory, but hopefully maybe there'll be some things on clearance for you to stock up on. This is what the back of the mountain looks like, and I often leave the backs of my projects unfinished. It just kind of saves time and materials. I am going to use some floral pins, is that what these are called, to secure those floral picks into place. So that is going right into the styrofoam. Some of the plaster has kind of come down the back a little bit, but the pins will go through the plaster as well. And now we're going to break out some other types of trees to just kind of experiment with some looks. Now, one thing I'm going to mention here is what I should be doing right now is I should be adding the lights. I really should have started with that before I did the trees. I don't like doing lights. I hate it. So I put it off, and then it is so much harder for me when it's time to add them because I'm going to have to like move all this stuff around. So if you are working on your building right now in real time, stop putting up those trees and put up your lights. Let's add our accessories. This is from the dollar store. I'm just now seeing the price there, so clearly that was in the $1.25 plus section of the store. And I gotta be honest, I'm a little bummed because I had found so many cute dollar store accessories that I had wanted to include in this display, and I don't know where I've put them. So I think it's gonna be a good thing though for all of us because we can see a number of different types of accessories. I'm including accessories from my Dickens Village and my North Pole Village, plus that one there from the dollar store, just to kind of give you guys an idea of some scale options. What types of accessories might you want to include in your mini village? And then now I'm just kind of laying down some of the that fluffy snow, a couple extra buildings that I couldn't fit on my mountain, just to kind of extend my scene beyond the mountain. And I just couldn't put it off any longer, so here we go with the lights. Also added those blue lights to the sides and the back of the display, and you can see the side here is quite unattractive. So I'm just going to use some buffalo snow to cover all of that up. You don't need glue or anything, it'll just stick right to it. And that's it. Our mini display is complete. I hope that you guys found some things helpful for your own displays and creations. If you would give this video a like, it would mean so very much to me, and don't forget to share it with 5 or 10,000 of your creative friends. And if you would subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, I would be so very grateful. A huge, massive thank you to everybody who has subscribed. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Happy creating!